Welcome to the Dan Owolabi Podcast. It's really good to have you guys back again. And I am thrilled because we are live behind the scenes at the Branches Worldwide Summit. I've got my good friend Frank Bealer here, who's literally just come off the Branches stage and delivered an epic talk. And we're going to talk about that talk, but we're going to talk about some other things as well. He's had a long journey of success. He's learned a ton, both in the business world, but then also in church world. And he understands the integration of faith and business in an authentic way. He's written a couple really good books, especially one recently. We'll talk a little bit about that. But today we're going to really focus on this idea of leadership, both between the church and also business, and how Christian leadership spans both spheres. So Frank, thanks for coming, my friend.
Dan, I'm super thankful to be here. And honestly, I think probably the most effective thing to do would be for me to ask you questions. You have plenty of value to offer, so I'm happy to answer questions. But along the way, I just know that they need to learn more from you. And I know I'm learning a ton.
I appreciate you saying that,
Yeah,
man.
of course.
Well, hey, give us a rundown of your journey. So you obviously, you're the president, CEO of Generis.
Yes.
And Generis does excellent consulting work around the country. But one of the things I think that people need to understand is your business background, and then your journey to the church, and then your journey to Generis and your family. Kind of give us just a quick 3-minute take on how you got to this place, because you're in demand and a lot of people want to know a little bit about what you do and why it matters.
You're very kind. I am grateful for where I've ended up despite my inadequacies and gaps. Trying to be a good steward of what God's entrusted in my care. I grew up not knowing Jesus, not in a church, and in rural East Tennessee, where there are churches everywhere. Just never was invited. Wasn't against church. My family wasn't against church. Gave my life to Jesus, fell hard. Was in the business world. I got in the insurance world and was quite successful at that. I found it very easy to sell and work in the insurance world at a very large scale. And so at a very young age, found myself being president of a firm operating in 47 states.
And you were like 27?
Yeah, late 20s. And the day I was installed, man, I was a manager and the owner of the company. So I had no ownership. So I'm a sales guy that just kind of moved up through the ranks and loving Jesus all along the way, trying to serve people. My whole philosophy was going into a meeting, you'll be better off because of our time together, whether you buy from me or not. I'm just going to serve and it's going to sort itself out. And we did well. We did really well. And so the owner of the company, this patriarch of this family that owned the company, came in one day at this table that's as long as you can imagine. I mean, 25 chairs, so over the top, boardroom table. And he said, well, unless the building's on fire or we've lost all the money, I don't want to hear any more about this place. Frank's in charge.
No way.
And he got up. Nobody was 15 years, the youngest next person was 15 years older than me. Everybody looks at me, they're going to lynch me, man.
Oh my gosh.
And so I'm pulling out PowerPoint presentations and doing it. And they're like, who's this guy? And then as soon as they all started making more money,
everybody's fine. Oh, he's great. Yeah, he's a whiz kid.
This guy's awesome.
Doogie Howser. This guy's amazing.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, young guy. Our firm ended up acquiring a wholesaler and retailer of insurance in Rock Hill, South Carolina. And I decided to leave the VP in charge. And we were going to move to the big city of Charlotte. At this point, we had 3 kiddos. We're both only children, so we had the only grandkids, but we're moving. Kept our home in Tennessee because we thought we were coming back. And needed a church, got connected to Elevation Church, volunteering as a greeter and setup team.
And before you say, a lot of people, when you say elevation, they're going to know immediately what that means. Some people won't know what that means. Give us a snapshot of what elevation is.
Okay, yeah. So Elevation, Pastor Stephen Furtick is fantastic. Communicator and preacher, one of the best on the planet. Many people know Elevation Worship. When I was there, it was called worship. It's called church on a Sunday. It was that's worship. And so, man, it was just great church to attend. We had 1 permanent campus and 2 portable campuses at that point.
Huge church now.
Huge church now. So at that point, 3 locations and starting that momentum. People are starting to hear the name of Pastor Stephen Furtick. He was starting to get invited to speak at things that definitely was popping on the radar. And so a year of serving and attending there, God put it on mine and my wife's heart to leave vocational work in the workplace, marketplace, and go full-time into ministry, massive pay cut, life change, all the things you can imagine.
Yep.
And we were on staff, so I helped launch would then be our 5th campus, and then quickly went on the executive team and was on from 5 campuses to 17. Rocket ride, and now there's Dove Awards and Grammys and just all the stuff with that. Incredible opportunity to experience scale and growth and impact and build systems and all that. So I saw that business world influencing and giving me understanding on what it looks like to scale and have different locations, not necessarily in church, but just in ministry and caring for people. And so grew a lot during that time, which obviously gave me a platform for ministry to do other stuff and speak at Orange or other events and conferences. And my very first conference I ever spoke at was Hillsong, Australia.
Oh, wow. No kidding.
So
that's the first one?
That was the first one.
That's a big one.
Start somewhere.
Why don't you start small like the rest of us? Like,
exactly right. So I just hadn't done that before. And so then I have this opportunity. They had a whole like next gen breakout that was in like their outdoor arena, not the indoor one that was bigger, but the outdoor one. Yeah. And there it was. And I'm like, praise God.
That's good.
So,
and somewhere along the line, you wrote a book called The Myth of Balance.
Yeah, during that time.
And I picked it up, and I thought, man, it was absolutely incredible. In fact, my wife and I still follow that rule. We've had a really crazy, busy season of travel. And we've had the sort of, hey, because of this, we're now going to do some pretty cool things afterwards because it's been so busy. So anyway, keep going with your story. I just want to make sure that was in there.
So that book was written out of, I had announced to the staff at Elevation, to the team that I had. So at that point, I was over kids, students, and adult small groups. I had all the leaders of that in a room, and I announced to the team that we were getting ready to do 10 nights of revival. And I had to come out of executive team meeting. I was stoked, and it fell a little flat.
At home?
With that group of people.
Oh, wow.
So I hadn't even made it home yet. This is like fresh.
Really?
I hadn't told my wife yet. That was a whole different issue. It fell flat in that room, and I was like, oh, this is supposed to be awesome. And you're all looking at me. And I realized that everybody was managing work, life, ministry differently. Some were really struggling. Some were struggling to communicate. And they were like, how do I go home and deliver this to my spouse? Exciting, but wait, what's going on here?
Wow. Everyone's had that
Everybody's
moment.
running hard. Yeah. So it led me to start to do a series of exercises to work through how do we communicate? How do we put up proper parameters? How do we communicate well? How do we evaluate our calendar? That gave birth to Myth of Balance.
That's good.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm doing that. We start getting to the point where we're building 2 new buildings a year at Elevation. At that point, a 700-seat auditorium was like $8 million or something like that. And we were doing 2 a year, but we weren't using them during the week. So I started feeling led to start to optimize that space. My now close friend, Kerry Newhoff, at that point was a friend.
He's a podcaster.
Podcaster guy.
Author, a lot of people.
Brilliant leader. So Kerry, this is before podcasting and all that, makes a connection with some other people in Atlanta and says, hey, there's something happening in this multi-use space. So I get the privilege of creating something called Phase Family Center, which is a multi-use strategy for churches. And so now I'm applying the business principles I learned and the scaling and church growth I learned in this unique parachurch organization called Phase. And so did one in Alpharetta, another one, Mark Batterson up in DC, and then it slowly started to scale from there. And along the way, we pivoted to a franchise model, first of its kind ever in the nation, to franchise with a church. Cool model, but I realized I didn't want to run that. So I shifted to a board seat and hired a CEO. Liked the model, thought it was the right model, just didn't want to run it. And along the way, I had been consulting Generis. So I was hired to consult the leadership of Generis and Jim Shepard a few years earlier. And I fell in love with the work of discipleship and stewardship and generosity. And through a really cool series of circumstances of this kid that grew up super, super poor in rural East Tennessee, not knowing Jesus, to give my life to Jesus at 17 and being in a punk rock band, to being in business and trying to figure out that's another story.
You just mentioned punk rock.
Slip that through real quick.
That's another story.
90s punk rock. That's another day. Another day. Christian punk rock.
Oh, geez.
So awesome or terrible. You can decide. You can decide. So then you start to look at this story of like, man, a kid that loves Jesus, fell hard for Jesus, that understood marketplace ministry, understood scale, and got to experience the incredible rocket ride of Elevation, understood how to integrate that together. And now the opportunity comes for me to be Jim Shepard, who's an apostle of the faith and has served so many churches, to be his successor as CEO, which is where I sit now.
Yep, that's good. I had a conversation with Jim, and he talked specifically about the transition and the amount of humility that it took for you guys to do what you did, and how seamless it was because both of you had done sort of the hard work and the heart work
Yes.
before that succession happened. That kind of brings me to this idea that a lot of the lessons you've learned translate between church and business. And honestly, we've talked about this earlier on the podcast. Primarily CEOs, executives, and owners tune in. A lot of people, when they're looking for advice on how to run their business in a spiritual way or in kingdom way, they look to their pastor. And no, offense to the pastor never learned business principles in seminary, right? Or, they went to business school and they never learned, theological principles there. You seem like you have the insight into both, how to run a business with kingdom principles. And it seems like it makes sense because you've done both in the church world and then also in the business world. I'm curious, specifically on the idea of succession. Can you talk about the things that you've learned, the principles that you've pulled out that really made a difference in the succession between Jim and you that made everything go so stinking smoothly?
It's been phenomenal. He did the heart work and was doing that before I came along. When he was, this is one of the things that frustrates me about business leaders sometimes that are believers, okay? They know they need to pray. They need to include Jesus and God in the conversation. They're praying for something. They're believing for something, but are they taking the action necessary in their own world and life in preparation for God to respond? And Jim was doing the heart work. I credit him this before he even knew my name. He was praying, him and Nancy were praying for who's going to lead their vocational legacy, this massive impact they're having, and keep it going in a way that doesn't distort or become something different, that remains so discipleship focused and approach, which is very unique in the way that we do it. He was praying for that, but at the same time, he was already wrestling with, what's it going to look like for me to be a part of this but not have CEO on my name badge? What's it going to look like when suddenly I hire somebody and they're the one that gets invited to things that I don't get invited anymore?
Wow.
He was doing that before I ever came along.
And there's a lot of identity work that he had to do that people miss. It's not just about shifting titles. It's about who he's going to be when he's sitting over in the corner quietly and no one's asking for his autograph or his name or his number.
That's exactly right.
That's really good.
So he did that work, which is honoring. I will say one of the things that we had to learn the right way to do it, so we kind of go up and down while I was at Elevation, of figuring out what's the proper level of honor to show people, right? So there are people that they're high capacity, whatever, athletes or business or whatever, and some people are like, well, they put their pants on one leg at a time like I do, and I'm like,
no honor.
No, but they're pretty awesome at what they do, and they do it better, I guess. So there's that side, but then there's the other side of, I don't know how to do my hands, like I don't know how to function.
When I'm in the room with this guy, I start to sweat. Yeah.
Right. And so I learned at Elevation, getting to encounter and see how different people navigated all that complexity.
Wow.
And it put on me something I carry that's value is to show proper honor. So, and I think proper is to put some weight to it, to respect the energy, effort that people do without being weird and treating them not as a child of God too. And so finding that lane is important. So now Jim, who I consider just to be an apostle, I mean, he's so amazing at the work that he's done. I can honor that. I can honor all the history, all the work he's done over 33 and a half years of doing this work faithfully. The kingdom impact he has had as a leader is phenomenal. I can honor that without being weird and being like, I got to make it my own. And first thing I'm going to do is change the colors and the logo and the tagline. Because there's nothing substantive there, right? And so we are living out what we read in Romans of how to properly honor one another. And so get this, so I can brag on Jim. You got to have a conversation with him. I wasn't in the room, and he was being very respectful and kind. You told me that. He was on a trip to London with some pastors, and a pastor sitting in the room listening to him takes a picture of him and says, man, this guy loves you a lot.
Oh, wow.
And so Jim didn't know that I knew that guy.
Okay.
But that guy was like, man, he's showing such honor so far away.
On the other side of the ocean,
At the exact same time, another pastor is doing the same thing to Jim, same day at a different event here in the States that I was at, doing the same thing.
You were saying something about Jim.
Same thing,
and the pastor sent it to Jim. Same day. Oh,
and
wow.
So I'm like,
oh, that's so good.
That's it.
That's it.
That's the secret sauce of him doing the identity work, me being confident that I can be myself. I'm confident in my calling. Still not confident in my abilities. Still got to work on that, but I'm confident in my calling. And I know he's there to support me, and he's a fan, and he's going to be behind me. I can figure it out from here.
That's good. That's good. When we see succession, and we talk about succession both in the business world and the church world, I mean, it's usually fraught with a lot of complexity, and people miss sort of the internal work that has to happen.
Yeah.
It feels like you guys, for some reason, ahead of time, realized proper honor, recognizing that there's room for Jim to feel like you don't appreciate what he's put into
Right.
it. And for resentment to start to build sort of quietly. He might not say it's there, but it would be there. And for you to also feel like, hey, he's larger than life. Every room I walk into, even if he's not there, he's there.
Yeah.
You know, that sort of connection. And to be able to give proper honor
Yeah.
in moments when you're not in the room sort of dissipates that.
Absolutely. And when it's the lazy way of leadership is for the new person to come in, man or woman that's coming to lead, and to say, we're going to do it this way, not this way, and not do the work of explaining how one is building off the other, and more just downplay this. This was the old way. This is the wrong way. Here's the right way.
Man.
Instead of being like, no. Because all this has been done, we can now do this.
Yeah,
and
wow.
that step gets skipped because that takes some work.
It does.
It is easier just to be flippant about it. So when we just knocked down all the walls at our offices and did a full renovation during this succession plan, okay? And he let me design the space, and I'm literally knocking down walls, and they had designed it that way for a reason, like a decade ago or whatever. They got to pick out the colors and everything. It's all there for a reason. And now I'm changing everything. Some of it's just time, and it just needs to be refreshed. But I was like, how do I, if I want to be intentional, how am I going to honor through this when I'm literally changing everything? Every wall, every paint, every carpet, furniture, I'm changing everything in there. I'm moving the kitchen. I'm adding a fireplace. He's like, why do we need a fireplace? You know, so it's like, I know I'm changing everything. I'm like, how do I honor in this? And I came to the team and I said, on the right wall, when you walk in, we have a 16-foot long wall.
Yeah.
I said, I wanted to start right there, and I want a mural that's the history of Generis down that wall,
strong.
because that will show honor. Now, here's the thing. Our clients don't come in the office. Like, we rarely ever have a client. We go to them. So why would I do that? We know the history. We watched the history video. I wanted that to stay in front of us, and everybody knew that walked through that door to see the history and the milestone moments we've experienced, and not assume they watched it on some video sometime during the onboarding process.
It's right there in front of us.
It's right there.
This
You
is where we
can't
came
miss
from.
it.
Wow.
This is where we came from, and it starts with when Generis started as a company. There were people that would come. There were other people in this space of generosity consulting and whatnot, and they would come in with these big binders. And the guy that founded the company right before Jim got involved, Don Linscott, Don didn't walk in with a binder. He just walked in with a Bible.
Oh, man.
And like, he was literally like, no, we can work from this. Like, I don't need that. We'll deal with that later.
Yeah, right.
But we got binders. But that's how we're going to start this relationship.
Here,
We're going to start here.
Yeah.
And so
When you say this, by the way, those of you who are just listening, he's actually holding the Bible.
Sorry,
That's the thickest Bible I've ever seen.
Well, okay, so let's talk about this. So this gets flagged by TSA because it's so thick, because they think I'm hiding a gun or something in the middle.
It's like a brick, man.
I'm carrying this Bible for 2 years. It's a legacy Bible for one of my kids.
Okay.
So I'm doing 2 years of notes, journaling, everything in. So before my kids, and then I'll start the next one. And so I just happened to pick this one. Now I'm kind of like, I could probably get it done better.
Dude,
but I do have lots of margins.
6 kids, man. Like, that's a lot of Bibles to go through.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That's crazy.
So 2 years at a time.
Okay.
Yeah, crank it out.
Good.
That's random, I know.
Well, you were talking about him walking in with the Bible instead of binders,
That's exactly
and using
right.
that as sort of a foundation
Yeah,
to the
that's right.
instant conversations or the initial conversations. You know, that's really good, because I think what happens for a lot of business owners, executives, entrepreneurs, whatever, when it comes to succession, somebody else taking over the department, or you getting promoted into someone else's spot, or you buying a company from someone else, there really isn't a lot of sort of faith-based information about how to do succession right. Honor is a great word to use that doesn't get thrown around very often, especially when you talk about private equity or anything like that. And so it feels like you've really put your finger on something that both is practical in helping smooth the transition with the team that's been there for a long time and really does love and honor the founder, but then also, you know, has that spiritual component where by making space for the previous story as you build the new story, you're really sort of saying, look, what happened before, that was blessed by God. And what we're doing next, that was also blessed by God. That's excellent. I love that.
I think the big thing is so many leaders want to make their mark instead of continue the story. And so if you feel the weight of continuing the story, then a good storyteller has to weave it all together. And if I'm trying to make my mark, I'm basically drawing a line in the sand and saying, this is mine moving forward. I don't have to do the hard work. And so I think when you're taking a new position, you're taking a management role, you're moving up the org in place of somebody else, there's this tendency of wanting to just draw that line in the sand. And I'm saying, don't divide. You don't get to separate the story like that. These people were part of the previous story and they're still going.
Yeah.
So unless when we're teaching, when we're doing live teachings, whatever we're doing with the staff, when we restructure staff meetings or whatever, when we're doing those things, how are we nodding to this is building on what was before?
That's good. That's really good. That's the practical and the theological. I love that. You know, one of the things I think it's so important about the talk that you gave here on the Branches Summit is that there's some people who didn't come to the Branches Summit, which I don't know why you didn't come.
Missed out.
If you didn't hear his talk, then you're missing out. But for those people who weren't here, and they want to know sort of a quick synopsis of both who Frank Bealer is, what Generis is all about, what your general message is, give me a sense of kind of a quick piece of advice that you would give to them about how to integrate their faith and their business together. For those who are Christians and really trying to live godly principles in their business, what sort of advice would you give them?
I feel like we pray really well for the big ideas of where we want God to take us, the audacious things we're believing God for. We pray for those, but we don't actually pray for the steps along the way. We're not praying before we go into that meeting. We're not wrestling with what does God's word say? How does it align with this decision we're making with our staffing or our hiring? One of the things, just to be consistent with the Generis story, is whenever a new consultant comes on, the narrative now is, I just brought a clarity to it, is if they're not successful, it's our fault, not theirs. And so that means, did we set them up for success? Did we support them? Did we train them properly? Did we not select them properly? It was our fault. So that's consistent with the generous posture. I just put some new language around it to say, no, this is how we're going to build and do this. And so if I'm praying and believing that God, I just want to scale what God's entrusted our care because I believe in the work and I believe it will do better work and will continue to grow. So if I'm just responsible for that, then I need to build a framework to support that. And I need to pray and integrate God in the elements that get me there, not just longing for the big idea, but in those daily meetings. Where does it look like? Where does the way we structure our HR, structure our operations, is this how? Would we be audacious enough to say, as we're doing this staffing restructure, is this how Jesus would do it? And if not, what would he do differently?
Good.
And
it's good.
I think we can have some honest conversations. It doesn't mean be walked over. It doesn't mean not be a good steward. It doesn't mean do it without excellence. None of those things. And so there's correction and coaching, and sometimes people aren't supposed to stay on the team, but let's work through that through the lens, the steps along the way to get to the big idea instead of saying, God, you're in the big vision. I'll take care of it down here. I think weaving it in is critical.
That's really good. That's really good. If people want to know more about you, about the work you do, where can they get more information about that? Generis, Frank, where they can get more information on it? And the book you just wrote?
I just wrote a book called Developing Discernment, just helping leaders like refine 30 days of just kind of devotional work in the area of discernment. Instagram is where I'm actually most engaged and interact with people and message, so they can find me there, Frank Bealer. And then generis.com.
It's good. I love it. I love it. Frank, thanks for coming on the podcast, man.
Absolutely.
It was fantastic.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate you.
And cut there. What I would love to do, we got about maybe 4 more minutes. We have a 10-minute countdown there, and there's nobody in the room just yet. Okay. Can you, we can cut this in. You talked about that book,
Developing Discernment.
Can you give us like a little 3-minute, hey, heard about the book coming out. Can you give us a little insight on that? I would be very curious to.
Yep, I like that.
Possibly have that in there.
I like that. That's good. That's good. Give me some context on that. That's for anybody, faith, Christian, or Christians in business, whatever.
Yeah, anybody, Christian leaders, period.
Okay.
The idea is that in discernment, there are some people that we hear that they're naturally gifted with discernment. That is true. But the idea of discernment is needed for everybody. So everybody's got to grow in the area of discernment. We kind of land on two places. You either have it or you wish you had it. And this book is kind of like the beginner's guide of like, hey, some of you have high discernment. You don't need this book. You're already living it out. But for the rest of us that are trying to grow in the area of discernment, we just want to give you some tools to get you started. What does Scripture say? What does it look like to bring God in all of our decisions?
I love that. I love that. Good. Developing discernment?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So one of the things I think that you've been working on, and you just released this here a couple months ago, is a book called Developing Discernment. And if I know anything about discernment, I know that there's a lot of people out there who've heard the word discernment, especially if you're in Christian circles, and it has a lot to do with making really, really good decisions in the right time. And then there's people out there who wish they had it, but they don't. Can you walk us through what the book is about? Who's it for? And what is it supposed to do to help us develop discernment?
Yeah. So the idea is simple. I've got 6 kids. Some are gifted with discernment. You can see it already. I'm wired for discernment. So I would say that's a gift of mine. But here's what I've recognized. Every Christian leader needs better discernment. So the people that are rock stars at discernment and they get complimented on that all the time, this isn't the book for them.
Okay.
It's for everybody else.
Everybody else. Yeah,
everybody else
the rest of us. Yeah, right.
Which is this idea of like, what does it look like to spend 30 days in God's word through like a devotional and a morning and evening prayer to just work through God? I want to bring you into my decisions in every area of my life. Help me know how to weave that in and do that better and how to intentionally do that. So it's a 30-day concentrated, what if we actually doubled down in this area? Because you made a comment. You said discernment isn't used a lot except in some faith circles. There's this cool tool in Google where you can see how much a word is used in society. And early 1900s, okay, discernment was just in the vocabulary. It was written in newspapers and articles. It wasn't just faith. It was just
politics,
part of our
business,
language.
whatever.
It was just, they have high discernment.
Okay.
And then it tanked. So post the Depression, Great Depression, it just tanked. And now it's used in Christian books and Christian ways. And then in the 90s, it decreased even more because people didn't want to use Christian-y words. And so it decreased even more. And so I'm like, no. This is something that we all need to grow in as Christian leaders. We need to embrace it. And so it started with, I do this thing. I pick a topic and I study it for 3 months just to grow as a leader, focused learning. So I have 2 books a month, one single topic for 3 months. I'm going to learn. And I was studying about discernment and I was like, oh, there's so much I didn't know. So I doubled down and did it for another 3 months and started journaling. And those notes accidentally became a devotional for others.
No kidding. Wow. So it's your own personal study plus your own personal gifting. Putting together and saying, I see a real need out there. People aren't doing it. They don't understand it. And I can make it practical for people.
Absolutely.
That's really good. And I think, for those of you who have been watching, understanding Frank's experience in both business and in church, I mean, that's an incredible resource because I think who wouldn't want to make better decisions that are focused on godly principles? So, that's a good book to pick up. I love it.
Thanks, man.